Alright, let's start with the word, which is a bit of an interesting one because it has a few different meanings depending on how you use it. Our word is yoke. Now, yoke can be both a noun and a verb. Let's start by looking at yoke as a noun because it has quite a few meanings there. As a noun, yoke has several different definitions. Let's go through them one by one. The plural form of yoke as a noun is yokes. First, the most traditional meaning of yoke is a wooden crosspiece that is fastened over the necks of two animals and attached to the plow or cart that they are to pull. Think about olden days farming. You might see two oxen working together to pull a plow. They would have this wooden bar that goes across their necks, connecting them so they can pull together. That wooden piece is a yoke. You might see pictures of this in history books or maybe even in older movies. It's a way to team up animals to work together. Another meaning of yoke as a noun is something regarded as oppressive or restrictive. This is a more figurative meaning. When we say something is a yoke, we mean it feels like a heavy burden or something that's holding you down and limiting your freedom. The example says, the yoke of imperialism. Imperialism is when one country has power and control over other countries. So, the yoke of imperialism means that the control and power of the stronger country feels like a heavy, restrictive burden on the weaker countries. In everyday life, you might hear someone say they want to throw off the yoke of debt. That means they feel like their debt is a heavy burden that's controlling their life, and they want to get rid of it so they can be free. It's like that wooden yoke, but instead of animals, it's an idea or a situation that feels restrictive. There's also a historical meaning. In ancient Rome, an arch of 3 spears representing a yoke, under which a defeated army was made to march. This is a specific historical thing, not really used in everyday language now, but it was a symbol of defeat and humiliation. Another noun meaning is a pair of animals yoked together. So, if you have 2 oxen that are connected by a yoke, you can call that pair a yoke of oxen. It's like saying a team of oxen. The example says, a yoke of oxen. So, if you saw 2 oxen working together, connected by that wooden bar, you could refer to them as a yoke of oxen. There's an archaic meaning old-fashioned, which is the amount of land that one pair of oxen could plow in a day. So, a yoke could also refer to a measurement of land in the past. We don't really use it this way anymore. Now, yoke also has a meaning related to clothing. It's a part of a garment that fits over the shoulders and to which the main part of the garment is attached. Think about some shirts or dresses. They might have a separate piece of fabric across the shoulders at the top, and then the rest of the shirt or dress hangs down from there. That shoulder piece is called a yoke. The example says, the pinafore fell amply from a short yoke. A pinafore is like a sleeveless apron dress. This is describing how the main part of the pinafore hung down from that shoulder piece, the yoke. You might see this kind of construction on different types of clothing. There's also a meaning, a frame fitting over the neck and shoulders of a person, used for carrying pails or baskets. Imagine someone carrying buckets of water, one on each side. They might use a curved piece of wood that rests on their shoulders and has hooks to hang the buckets from. That frame is also called a yoke. You might see people in some countries using these to carry things. And then there are some more technical meanings. It can be the crossbar of a rudder on a boat or plane, or a bar of soft iron between the poles of an electromagnet, or in North American English, a control lever in an aircraft, like the steering wheel in a car. These are more specific to those fields. Okay, that's a lot of meanings for yoke as a noun. It can be that wooden thing for animals, something that feels oppressive, a pair of yoked animals, a part of clothing, a carrying frame, and some technical parts. Now, let's look at yoke as a verb. The verb forms are yokes, third person present, yoked, past tense and past participle, and yoking, present participle. As a verb, yoke has a few meanings too. The main one is to put a yoke on a pair of animals, couple or attach with or to a yoke. It's the action of putting that wooden crosspiece on the animals so they can work together. The example says, a plow drawn by a camel and donkey yoked together. This describes a situation where a camel and a donkey are connected by a yoke so they can both pull a plow. The verb yoked here means they were joined together with a yoke. You might see this in pictures or videos of farming in certain parts of the world where animals are still used to pull equipment. Another meaning of yoke, as a verb, is to cause two people or things to be joined in a close relationship. This is another figurative meaning, like the oppressive noun meaning. It's about linking things together very closely. The example says, Hong Kong's dollar has been yoked to America's. This means that the value of Hong Kong's currency is closely linked and dependent on the value of the American dollar. They are yoked together financially. In everyday life, you might hear about two companies being yoked together through a merger or a very close partnership. It means they are now closely connected and their success might depend on each other. Finally, there's a U.S. English informal meaning of yoke as a verb, which is to attack, especially by strangling. This is a very slangy and serious meaning, and not something you'd use in most situations. The example says, two crackheads yoked this girl. This is a very informal and violent way of saying that two people attacked a girl, specifically by putting their hands around her neck to strangle her. This is a very specific and informal usage. So, as a verb, yoke mainly means to put a yoke on animals or to join things together closely. There's also that informal meaning of attacking. To sum it all up, yoke has a lot of different meanings. As a noun, it's mostly about that wooden thing for animals, but also about oppression, a clothing part, and some other technical things. As a verb, it's about joining with a yoke or linking things closely, with that one informal meaning of attacking. It's a word where you really need to pay attention to the context to know which meaning is being used. Any questions about any of these meanings of yoke, either as a noun or a verb? Don't be shy to ask. Alright, let's get ready for our next word. Today's word is pensive. First things first, what kind of word is pensive? It's an adjective. Remember what adjectives do? They're those describing words that tell us more about nouns, people, places, things, or even moods. So, pensive is going to describe something for us. Now, unlike verbs, adjectives usually don't change their form too much. We just have pensive. Sometimes you might hear more pensive or most pensive if you're comparing things, but the basic form is just pensive. So, what does pensive actually mean? The definition says it means engaged in, involving, or reflecting deep or serious thought. In simpler terms, if someone is pensive, it means they are thinking deeply about something, usually something kind of serious or important. They might look thoughtful, maybe a little bit sad or serious, because they're really focused on what's going on in their head. Think about it like this. Imagine you've just finished reading a really interesting book, maybe one with a sad ending, or one that made you think about big questions. You might sit quietly for a while, just thinking about the story and what it all meant. That quiet, thoughtful mood you're in could be described as pensive. You're engaged in deep thought. The example in your notes is a pensive mood. So, if someone is in a pensive mood, it means they are feeling thoughtful and serious. They might be quiet, maybe looking off into the distance, not really paying attention to what's going on around them because they're so caught up in their thoughts. Let's think of some more daily life examples. Imagine you ask your friend what they want to do after school, and instead of immediately saying something, they get a kind of distant look in their eyes, maybe they stroke their chin, and they seem to be really considering their options, thinking deeply about what they truly want. You could say they look pensive. They are reflecting on their choices. Or imagine you see someone sitting alone on a park bench, looking out at the lake. They're not smiling or frowning, just looking thoughtful and a little bit serious, like they're pondering something important. They might be described as looking pensive. They are engaged in deep thought. Think about a time when you might feel pensive. Maybe after watching a news story about something sad happening in the world, you might feel quiet and thoughtful, reflecting on what you saw. That feeling, that state of deep thought, is being pensive. So, pensive is all about being in that state of deep, serious thought. It's not just daydreaming or thinking about what you want for dinner. It's more focused, more serious, and often involves reflecting on something important or meaningful. Any questions about what it means to be pensive, or about being in a pensive mood? Don't hesitate to ask. Alright, let's get ready for our next word. Now, we're going to talk about the word vicinity. First off, what kind of word is vicinity? It's a noun. Remember what nouns are? They are names for things, places, people, or ideas. So, vicinity is going to name a place or an area. The plural form of vicinity is vicinities. Now, what does vicinity actually mean? The main meaning of vicinity is the area near or surrounding a particular place. In simpler terms, it means the places that are close by or around something specific. It's like saying nearby or around here. Think about it like this. Imagine you're at school. If I ask you what shops are in the vicinity of the school, I'm asking you about the shops that are close to the school, maybe on the same street or just around the corner. I'm not asking about shops that are miles away. The vicinity is the nearby area. The example in your notes says, the number of people living in the immediate vicinity was small. Immediate vicinity just means the area very, very close to a particular place. So, this sentence is saying that there weren't many people living right next to that specific location. Let's think of some more daily life examples. Imagine you're going to a friend's house. You might ask them, is there a good pizza place in your vicinity? You're asking if there's a good pizza place nearby their house, in the area around where they live. Or say you lose your keys in the park. You might search the immediate vicinity of the bench where you were sitting first, because you think they're likely to be in that area close by. If you hear on the news that there was an accident in the vicinity of the town hall, it means the accident happened somewhere near the town hall, not miles away in another part of the city. Think about your own neighborhood. You could talk about the grocery store being in the vicinity of your house, meaning it's close by. Or if there's a park in your vicinity, it means there's a park nearby where you live. The definition also mentions an archaic meaning, which is proximity in space or relationship. Proximity just means being close. So, this older meaning is similar to the main one, just emphasizing the closeness in either physical space or even in a relationship. For example, you might have heard someone in an old story talk about the vicinity of their family, meaning their close relatives. While this meaning isn't used as much today, it still conveys the idea of being near or close. But for our everyday use, the main thing to remember is that vicinity means the area near or surrounding a specific place. It's all about what's close by. Any questions about what vicinity means or how to use it? Don't hesitate to ask. Alright, let's get ready to learn a new word. That word is plaque. First off, what kind of word is plaque? It's a noun. Remember, nouns are names for things. The plural form of plaque is plaques. Now, plaque has a few different meanings, so we need to pay attention to the context to know which one we're talking about. Let's go through them one by one. The first meaning of plaque is an ornamental tablet, typically of metal, porcelain, or wood, that is fixed to a wall or other surface in commemoration of a person or event. Think about those fancy signs you sometimes see on buildings or walls. They might be made of metal or wood and have writing on them to remember someone important or something that happened there. That's a plaque. The example says, an ornamental tablet, typically of metal, porcelain, or wood, that is fixed to a wall or other surface in commemoration of a person or event. This definition itself explains it pretty well. Think about walking around your town or city. You might see a plaque on the side of an old building that says something like, this building was the site of the first library in 1885, or, in memory of John Smith, a brave firefighter. These are plaques that are there to remember something or someone. Sometimes they can be quite decorative and made of nice materials. Another meaning of plaque is a sticky deposit on teeth in which bacteria proliferate. Proliferate just means to grow and multiply quickly. So, this kind of plaque is that soft, whitish stuff that builds up on your teeth if you don't brush them well. It's full of tiny little germs called bacteria. The example says, plaque around gum margins can lead to gingivitis. Gum margins are where your gums meet your teeth, and gingivitis is a gum disease. So, this sentence is saying that if you don't remove the plaque from around your gums, it can cause your gums to get red and swollen. You've probably heard your dentist or dental hygienist talk about plaque when you go for a checkup. They always remind you to brush and floss to remove plaque and keep your teeth healthy. That sticky film you feel on your teeth if you haven't brushed in a while? That's plaque. Now, Plaque also has a meaning in medicine. It refers to a small, distinct, typically raised patch or region on or within the body resulting from local damage or deposition of material. This is a bit more technical. It can refer to different things depending on the illness. The example mentions a fatty deposit on an artery wall in atherosclerosis. Atherosclerosis is a condition where your arteries can get clogged up. These fatty deposits that build up are sometimes called plaques. It also mentions a site of localized damage of brain tissue in Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's is a disease that affects the brain, and certain areas of damage in the brain are also referred to as plaques. This is a more medical term that you'd usually hear doctors or scientists using. There's also a meaning in microbiology. It's a clear area in a cell culture caused by the inhibition of growth or destruction of cells by an agent such as a virus. This is something scientists would see in a lab when they're studying viruses and how they affect cells. It's a specific term in that field. And finally, an older meaning of plaque is a flat counter used in gambling. This is like a chip you might use when playing games in a casino. This meaning isn't as common anymore. So, plaque has a few different meanings. The most common ones you'll probably hear about are the ornamental tablet on a wall and that sticky stuff on your teeth. The other meanings are more specific to medicine or science. When you hear the word plaque, you'll need to think about the context to know which meaning is being used. If someone is talking about a building, they probably mean the memorial tablet. If they're talking about brushing your teeth, they mean the sticky stuff. Any questions about any of these meanings of plaque? Don't hesitate to ask. Alright, let's get ready for our next word. Now we're going to talk about the word bashful. First things first, what kind of word is bashful? It's an adjective. Remember what adjectives do? They're those describing words that tell us more about nouns, like people or even animals. So, bashful is going to describe someone's personality or how they act. Now, unlike verbs, adjectives usually don't change their form too much. We just have bashful. You might sometimes hear someone say, more bashful, or most bashful, if they're comparing how shy people are, but the basic form is just bashful. So, what does bashful actually mean? The definition says it means reluctant to draw attention to oneself, shy. In simpler words, if someone is bashful, it means they are a little bit timid and they don't really like being the center of attention. They might feel a little awkward or nervous when people are looking at them or talking about them. It's like being a bit shy and wanting to stay in the background. Think about it like this. Imagine you're in class and the teacher asks a question. Maybe you know the answer, but you're a little bashful about raising your hand because you don't want everyone to look at you. You might feel a bit nervous about speaking up in front of the whole class. That feeling of being hesitant to draw attention to yourself is being bashful. The first example in your notes says, everything you need to know but have been too bashful to ask. This is talking about those times when you really want to know something, but you're too shy or embarrassed to actually ask the question. You're being bashful about drawing attention to your lack of knowledge. Another example, suddenly bashful, she could think of nothing to say. Imagine someone who is usually talkative suddenly becomes quiet and a little awkward because they're feeling shy or maybe a bit embarrassed. They've become bashful, and it's making them hesitant to speak. And the last example, don't be bashful about telling folk how you feel. This is encouraging someone not to be shy about expressing their emotions. It's saying, don't hold back because you're feeling bashful or worried about what others might think. Let's think of some more daily life examples. Imagine you get a compliment from someone. If you're bashful, you might blush, look down, and not really know what to say. You're feeling a little awkward about the attention being on you. Or think about a new student joining your class. They might be bashful at first and not talk to many people because they're feeling shy and unsure about making new friends. They're reluctant to put themselves out there and draw attention to themselves. Maybe you have a friend who is really good at singing, but they only ever sing when they're alone because they're too bashful to sing in front of other people. They're shy about sharing their talent and having everyone listen to them. So, bashful is all about being a bit shy, hesitant, and not really wanting to be the center of attention. It's that feeling of wanting to blend in and not wanting to draw too much notice to yourself. Any questions about what it means to be bashful? Don't be shy to ask.